Hello and welcome along to matchday 33 of Championship predictions from the Honest Football Podcast. We are back today with a full weekend edition at the end of a very tough week in the Championship. Things have been changing, there's been some surprise results, and there's also a very famous managerial return. We'll have a special on that tomorrow. Now we're back, so keep an eye out for that there. But now we've got to have a quick recap of what happened in matchday 32. And for me personally, it was a bit of a frustrating one. Only 6 points overall, including one perfect score, which was for Swansea 2, Blackpool 1, but a few other near misses, and I made my own mistakes. There were 4 Championship favourite scorelines in midweek, and I only predicted one in the whole match day. There's where you're going wrong. If you want perfect scores, just predict 1-1s. For the rest of you guys, though, exactly the same outcomes. Yes, via different fixtures and different results, but one perfect score for both Tony and W&G fan, and both of you level with me on 6 points. But that was matchday 32. We're moving on to the weekend edition because there are a lot of big games. And we start on Friday night, remarkably, with neither West Brom nor Birmingham, because it is two sides that won in midweek, and both of them needed it quite badly. It is Cardiff City at home to Reading. Now, both of them picked up very good results against sides in and around them. You could argue in relegation 6-pointers. Reading now moving away from that 11 points clear. And Cardiff 2 points clear of the relegation zone. A tiny buffer thanks to that result. They beat Birmingham 2-0 away from home. 2 late goals in what was a pretty good performance. Mainly because they showed a little bit of attacking intent. It's something we hadn't yet seen from Lamucci's Cardiff. But it's something I trust we will see. And Birmingham were really poor in that game, but Cardiff took advantage. A great away result for them, only their 4th away win of the season. And now back at home, can they back that up? Because yet to get a home win under Lamucci, I appreciate they've only played one game and it was against Borough, but it is going to be a very important spell for them. And given the fact that Reading, despite a good win at home to Rotherham in midweek, are the second worst away team in the division, have lost 11 of their 16 away games, and have let in more goals away from home than anyone else this year. And they haven't kept a clean sheet in their last 6 either. You would expect this to be the sort of one they can. A great result for Reading though, a 90th minute winner, a turnaround started by Andy Carroll early in the second half. But to be fair, over the course of the game, neither side really hit the target enough, despite having plenty of chances. But Reading nicked it, they moved back up into that mid-table pack, and given all of the stuff off the pitch this year, Paul Ince is still doing a very good job, despite the excitement at the start. For me though, I'm going to go back to what Cardiff do best at home. When they're in form, they keep clean sheets and they score very few goals. I'm going to go for a 1-0 Cardiff win. Reading, I know they can see loads on the road, and I know they don't keep clean sheets. But Cardiff haven't got enough firepower, so I'm going to go for 1-0. It's a Friday night TV game. I really hope it is more entertaining for Championship fans, but I can't see it. So 1-0 to Cardiff, and that will strengthen their chances of survival. Let's move on to Saturday, and we start with the early kickoff. It is Millwall versus Sheffield United. This is a very tricky one to predict, albeit both sides lost in midweek. Millwall went away to Coventry, who are always strong at home, and Sheffield United lost against Michael Carrick's Middlesbrough, who are just invincible at the minute. So for Sheffield United, it was a pretty important day, wasn't it? Because that gap has now closed to 7 points, albeit Sheffield United have got a game in hand. They can push their way back up. It is just the closing of the gap after being so far clear that is starting to cause a little bit of concern. They did have a very good chance to win that game. I mean, they probably had the better chances overall. They had more shots on target, double the amount in the end. It was a really good game between two very good Championship teams. However, they've come out on the wrong side of it. They do still have their frailties at the back to Sheffield United. And I do worry that against a lightning quick attack, like we saw with Archer and Akpom on the counter, there may be a little bit of a struggle for them. For Millwall, though, that's not really the style of play. They went to a 1-0 defeat at Coventry. It's probably what we expected, a very tight game. Not many chances for either side, but Coventry just edged it. But Millwall at home are a very different team. 8 wins and just 2 defeats at home this season. No side has conceded less at home than Millwall at the Den. 9 goals in 14 games. Sheffield United aren't the biggest scorers on the road. So the 2 scores I'm set between here are 1-0 for Millwall and the Championship's favourite scoreline. Now, given the fact that I lost out in midweek by not predicting more 1-1s, I'm going to have to do it here, and I'll probably overcompensate, but I'm going for Millwall 1, Sheffield United 1. On to the 3 p.m. kickoffs, and we start with Blackburn Rovers versus Swansea City. Blackburn drew yet again away at West Brom, a good late equaliser to get them a point there. And to be fair, against Watford and West Brom away, points aren't bad. It's the home ones against Wigan before that was an issue. For Swansea, they just about got the job done against Blackpool. Against 10 men at 1-0 up, you thought maybe it's job done, but then conceded an equaliser, but showed the spirit to go and get the win. A perfect score for me. Stopped the rot because it had been 3 games without a win in the league. Of course, conceded 7 goals in the 2 games prior as well. So really important for them to get a win and to only concede 1 goal too. I mean, if you go by Blackburn stats, you would suggest the Championship's favourite scoreline is again a firm favourite for this result. Because Blackburn, I know they had no draws and now they've drawn 3 in a row. But I think they're going to get back to winning ways here. Swansea have just been too brittle at the back. They've shown so many frailties. They didn't even look great against 10 men net, and Blackpool did have a couple of great chances for all of Swansea's possession and dominance. I'm going to go for Blackburn to nick it. A reverse of the score for Swansea that they had in midweek. Blackburn Rovers 2, Swansea City 1, and with that, Blackburn may well be back in the playoffs. Time for a very big game at the bottom next as Blackpool host Stoke City. Stoke got a very good win against Huddersfield in midweek, who, to be honest, were pretty hapless in their final game before Neil Warnock takes charge. But Alex Neil's side, again, just so unpredictable. A 4-0 win at home to Reading, defeat against Luton, which was uninspiring, a boring 0-0 draw at home to Hull, and then brilliant against Huddersfield. But I guess, at home to the 2 worst away sides in the division, they've managed to get great results. Blackpool away, though, is a very different test. Stoke have been a mixed bag on the road. Blackpool yet to have that bounce under Mick McCarthy. Slightly better performances, but without the outcome. And of course, the red card for Charlie Patino there. Very influential and may well harm them at the weekend too. Blackpool really have to win. They're at the foot of the table. They're on 28 points. And these are one of the home games they'd be targeting. And with Stoke there in 19th on 37, they are the sort of side that they can just drag back into it. And they've got to probably find one of them, Birmingham or QPR, to do that with, or it will become a very narrow race at the bottom of the table. As we mentioned in the Swansea bit a minute ago, I know Blackpool probably weren't the better side. You don't expect anyone to have much of the ball at Swansea, but they did have a couple of very good chances to get a result in that game, and almost did despite going down to 10. Stoke have not shown anything away from home in recent weeks. It wouldn't shock me if it's 0-0, but based on what I've seen at the moment, I'm going to go 1-0 either way, and I still haven't decided which. I'll be honest with you, I wrote down 1-0 Stoke before I came into this prediction show, but I'm going to flip it, and I might regret it. This is going to be one of those famous clips again, isn't it? 1-0 Blackpool against Stoke City. The home side will get their first win under Mick McCarthy. Next up, we have a return for the most experienced manager in the EFL. Managing his 1,604th game will be Neil Warnock, who returns to the dugout at Huddersfield Town. Of course, one of his former clubs who are hosting Birmingham City. It's going to be an interesting game. Both sides have very disappointing defeats in midweek. And again, we get into the stage, as I mentioned with the last game. Huddersfield level with Blackpool on 28 points at the bottom. Birmingham 1 point above Stoke on 38. Can they drag them back into it by getting a win? They're going to need to get results soon or it will get out of hand. And for Huddersfield, based on their away form this season, it is going to be at the John Smiths where they're able to do it. They had a great home record last year under Corberan. Can Neil Warnock re-find or rediscover that discipline, give them that little bit of attacking edge, and find the style they were playing under Corberan to get them out of trouble? They haven't scored in their last 2. Defeats away at Stoke and Wigan really deflating given where they are in the table. Obviously held at Blackpool the game before that. But a first home game in 4, a chance to impress. It will be bouncing with the new manager in. And Birmingham, after 2 very good wins away at Swansea and at home to West Brom, they were poor against Cardiff. 1 shot on target at home to a team that has been very poor for a number of months. Gifted them a victory, and to be honest, they're not the sort of side that can afford to do that. They're only 8 points clear themselves, and if Huddersfield can beat them, if Blackpool get the win we're predicting, it could then become a 6 or 7 horse race at the bottom again. So Birmingham need to refine what they had in the last week. Huddersfield, you just can't back against it. Craig and Charlie would be angry if I went against Neil Warnock here. And in his first game, he's got to go for it. He's got to get them disciplined. And I think he's going to do so. I'm going to go for a very dull but very important 2-0 Huddersfield win. Well, until we've got the Neil Warnock manager special tomorrow, let's get on with the rest of the predictions. We start with Hull City versus Preston. Preston against Luton with a 1-1 draw in midweek. It was infuriating. They had a man sent off. Let's be fair, they'd shown no ambition and had no shots on target prior to that. After it was even worse. But in the end, after conceding that goal, they showed great spirit to get back into it. Troy Parrott scored the penalty. It was one of only 2 shots on target they had. Luton just didn't take their chances. I think they had 4 clear-cut ones on the Opta stats, and on any other day, Preston probably would have lost. But they did well. They were spirited after the red card, but before it, very concerned with their performance. Didn't really show a lot of technical ability, and they have got a poor home record. We've mentioned it. It's still only 3 wins in 16 for them. They're conceding a few goals there as well. But this time, they're on the road. They're one of the best away teams in the league. And Hull, after a very good run, a very good defensive run as well, they were carved open at times by Norwich City. It all looked good early doors as they took the lead, but then it was a turnaround. It was a great performance from Norwich. We've seen them have a few very good days under David Wagner, and in the end, Hull just couldn't cope. They had 1 shot on target, which was the goal. They got completely outplayed, and let's be fair, they've been very good this year under Liam Rossignol, and I've taken a bit of stick for not predicting them to win some games, but I actually think he's one of the managers of the season. At home, it's going to be a very difficult one because Preston are so good on the road. I could easily see this going into a draw. I don't know whether I go for Preston. Will that red card and suspension be influential? You know what? Because I didn't do it in midweek again, I'm going to go for another Championship's favourite scoreline. Hull had kept 3 clean sheets in a row before that Norwich game. Preston don't score many, but they concede a few as well. So we're going to go for 1-1. Preston's away form to get them a point. Next up, we're off to Kenilworth Road, a game I'm both attending and dreading. It is Luton Town versus Burnley. Burnley's run of wins did stop with a 1-1 draw at home to Watford. Of course, typical that the game that I finally predict them to win after saying maybe they'll drop their 2 points in this game, they do go and get another result. A 95th minute equaliser to preserve that home unbeaten record. But to be fair, over the course of the game, it would have been a crime if they didn't get something. Watford scored with their only shot on target. Burnley had loads of the ball, loads of chances, didn't take them. But that's why they signed a big squad in January. Michael Obafemi, one of those to come in, and he managed to get the late equaliser. A good point for them in the end with Sheffield United losing to Borough. They stay 15 points clear of Borough with a game in hand, and now 8 clear of Sheffield United. For Luton, it's back-to-back away 1-1 draws. At the start of the week against Coventry and Preston, you'd probably say that's not bad. But given the fact that Preston was so poor first half, then they went down to 10 men, and some of the chances Luton missed were scandalous. You've got to be honest. You can say, yes, Preston showed no ambition. Yes, it's frustrating. But Luton had 3 or 4 glorious chances to win that game. And in the end, a 1-1 draw will feel very frustrating, despite the fact Luton are brilliant on the road. As we mentioned, though, before those back-to-back 1-0 home wins in the last 2 league games at Kenilworth Road, Luton haven't been great at home this year. Lots of draws, not many defeats, but again, a little bit sloppy at the back. Didn't often keep clean sheets prior to those. Burnley, away from home, very good. They either win or draw, as is the case at home. But they did show a little bit of a chink in the armour there. I expect Burnley to dominate the game. I expect them to catch Luton out on the counter. And the one thing that's a bit of a foil for Luton is pacing behind on the counter. We saw it against teams like Wigan. We've seen it before, even against Grimsby in the FA Cup. I've got a feeling we're going to get caught out. So I have to predict a Burnley win. I think it will be a good game. I think it will be a tight game. And I'll see Luton taking the game to them, which might not be the right approach. But it'll make for entertainment, but probably a defeat. I'm going for 2-1 to the visitors and league leaders. Well, next up is 2 sides that have essentially swapped places since they changed manager back at the end of last year. Middlesbrough hosting QPR. Borough gone from 21st to 3rd under Michael Carrick. A great win against Sheffield United to give them an outside chance at automatic promotion. And you're seeing adding Cameron Archer in January to what was already a bolstered front line with Chuba Akpom back in form. It's really starting to look good. 4 wins in a row, 2 or more scored in all of them, and aren't conceding more than 1 a game. I mean, Michael Carrick's done a fabulous job. QPR, on the other hand, under Neil Critchley, they've still not won since his first game in charge at Preston. They were beaten very comfortably and very heavily by Sunderland in midweek. They were caught on the counter. They had 2 shots on target at home. And to be honest, Sunderland could have won by more. They had 4 or 5 clear-cut chances. And in the end, 3 did not flatter them at all. There's been a little bit of talk and speculation about his job. We'll see if that changes over the next week or so, because let's be honest, he isn't going to win this game. Middlesbrough are flying. QPR, we mentioned those sides just above the relegation zone. They're now only 9 points clear, and bar the bottom four, they've got the worst goal difference in the league, except Reading. It's going to be a little bit tense for them if they lose a couple more here. I don't think after what Critchley did at Blackpool, many people would have expected this. The rot had started under McBeal, to be fair, before he left. But there's only one winner in this game. Yes, we could get a shock. Yes, we could get a turn up for the books. But I'm going Borough and I'm going heavy. I think it might be Critchley's last game in charge. I'm going 4-1 to Middlesbrough. Next up is Rotherham United versus Coventry City. Coventry come into this with a 1-0 win at home to Millwall, but we've mentioned it before. Coventry's home and away form are very different spectacles. 4th worst away record in the league. 3 wins all season. They don't concede that many, only 18 in 14, but they don't score many either. Add to that Rotherham ended their run of draws with a defeat away at Reading. Their last home game was a 0-0 at Sheffield United. The game after that was a 0-0 draw at Blackpool. You would not be surprised if this is a 0-0 or a 1-1 draw. Rotherham have just got to pick up points. They're 3 clear of the relegation zone. They've let in a lot of goals this season, but they have managed to stay in games recently. And I feel like that's what I've got to go for. With their defensive reinforcements, with their improved defensive form, take away what happened at Reading. I do think that they're going to try and play for a tight, scrappy game. I'm not sure that Coventry have got enough to unlock them. They're reliant on a moment of Gyökeres magic normally. So I'm going to go for the same again. Rotherham to draw 0-0 at home. I know I'm going for a lot of draws this weekend and it's probably going to backfire as it did not predict in them in midweek. But I'm going to go Rotherham United 0, Coventry 0. This is not the game to watch if you're a neutral. 3 to go. The next one is Sunderland versus Bristol City. Sunderland were magnificent away at QPR in the week, albeit not the stiffest opposition at the moment, but back-to-back wins against Reading and QPR, you've got to beat those sides in the bottom half, and Sunderland have done that. Don't forget, they came up via the playoffs last year. They're in 5th place. I might be owing Craig an apology. He said they'd be in the playoff mix. He put them 7th, and at the moment, even he might have been a bit unambitious there. Bristol City were held 1-1 by Wigan on the other hand, keeps their unbeaten run going. I took a lot of stick in the comments for not predicting Bristol City to win. But I've got to say this for Bristol City fans, and I said it during that episode as well. I know I went for 1-0 Wigan and it was 1-1, but it wasn't a slight on Bristol City. They've been very good recently. But don't forget we watched the whole championship, and Wigan under Sean Maloney are a different side. I think you saw that as well. Only 1 shot on target for Bristol City, which of course was the goal. Again, it's the same issue, conceding in the last half an hour, and it was a pretty even game. I think it was a fair result in the end. For Bristol City, it's been a lot of home games recently. Apart from the Preston game, they haven't played away in the league since New Year's Day, so it is pretty hard to judge them there. We know Sunderland have been average at the Stadium of Light. Bristol City are a mixed bag on the road. I just hope it's an entertaining one rather than a low-scoring draw. I do want to go for a side to nick this, but I'm not sure who. Sunderland don't carve teams open at home. Will Bristol City play the high line? Will they play into their hands? You'd think surely not. I'm going to go, I think, for Bristol City to nick it. The Sunderland do have difficult days at home. I really hope it's a good game for the neutral. I've been a big fan of both sides in recent weeks. But I'm going to go for Bristol City to nick it. I'm going to go by 2-1. And the final game on Saturday is a huge one. It is Wigan Athletic v Norwich City. Norwich back to what we saw in the first couple of games under David Wagner, a dominant steamrolling performance against Hull City. But to be fair, they did give up the lead again. They've got to watch out for that. But they're brilliant going forward at their best. A good win at Carrow Road, that'll get the fans on board. And Norwich well and truly in that playoff race, just 2 points off it now. Wigan, 3rd game unbeaten under Sean Maloney. Only 1 goal conceded in that time, and were really decent and solid against Bristol City. He's managed to change the way they play very quickly, and he's got them in touching distance. They are now just 2 points off Cardiff City in 22nd. They're closing that gap to the group of teams above all the time, and at the moment, this is the biggest test of his time in charge so far. They've gone away to Blackburn and Bristol City. They've played at home to Huddersfield in a relegation 6-pointer. What will you do against one of the big boys? Norwich can steamroll teams. We saw it against Preston, Coventry and Hull, but they can get frustrated. Can Wigan keep it tight? Can they make it a difficult day? I'm not sure they can make it difficult enough. I do think it will be tighter because Wigan have been very solid at the back, but we've not yet seen what happens when they go a couple of goals down under Maloney. Will they revert to type? Will they start to be blown away? I don't know. I'm going to go for Norwich to win it comfortably. It could well go the other way. But I'm going to go 2-0 to the visitors and Wigan back in trouble. Let's go on to Monday night though, the final game of this prediction show. Watford versus West Brom. They had to get one of the West Midland clubs on TV. Both sides drew 1-1 in midweek. West Brom, late equaliser conceded against Blackburn to disappoint them. They would have been up in the playoff places had they won that game. The team that benefit from that, though, is Watford, who nicked a 1-1 draw at Burnley. That is now 4 draws in 5 in the Championship, a defeat against Borough. The rest of them have been 1-1 or 2-2. West Brom have been a bit of a mixed bag, maybe not had that form that they had in recent months. But to be fair, the defeats have come away at Burnley and away at Birmingham in a derby on a Friday night. For West Brom, I do believe that the goals are going to come back at some point, albeit they are turning into a core brand side now. It's 1-0s, it's 1-1s. But Watford are so inconsistent. I know they've drawn a lot recently, but the signings haven't yet integrated. There's players coming back from injury. They're not really able to name just a steady team consistently. So as a result of that, I'm going to finish the way I should have in the last episode with a 1-1, a Championship's favourite scoreline. I can't separate the sides. I do think someone will win it, but I have no idea who. So I'm going for a draw to finish off. Let's have a quick recap then of what I've predicted for matchday 33. And I think we're going to have a bit of an interesting time at the bottom if things go the way I predicted. I've gone for Huddersfield Town to get the new manager bounce under Neil Warnock. I've also gone for Blackpool to get a 1-0 victory against Stoke. And that will make the bottom 7 very tight come the end of this match day and weekend. I've also gone for Norwich to get a win away at Wigan. That would put them back at the bottom of the table if all my predictions come off. And of course, the star result of the weekend is a 4-1 win for Middlesbrough against QPR. Will that be the end of Neil Critchley? They're just my opinions. Do you agree with them or disagree? Please let me know down in the comments and give us your predictions for matchday 33. As always, if you match or beat my score, you will get a mention in a recap of the next episode. There is a mini midweek coming, 5 games that have been rescheduled. That will be out on Sunday after the Neil Warnock Manager Special tomorrow. If you did enjoy this one though, please do add a thumbs up on it. Subscribe for regular content from the Honest Football Podcast. You can support the show as a channel member by clicking the join button down below. We'll see you again next time for more Championship predictions.